Today we're here to discuss Other People's Money, a new book by the distinguished economist John Kay. The book looks at how bankers went from being servants of the people to masters of the universe and what we can do to fix that problem.
Suppose we design the financial system to meet the needs of the real economy rather than the needs of people who work in financial markets. What would it look like? Some of you probably still have the old-fashioned idea that what banks do is they take people's deposits and they lend them out to business. Actually, lending to non-financial business accounts for less than 3% of the total assets of British banks today. Over the last 30 years, the financial system has grown in size and in remuneration and in the degree to which economics and politics have become, as it were, centred round finance. The way in which, in the subtitle I have, finance has moved from being, as it were, servant of the people to, in the phrase that came into use in the 1980s, master of the universe. What's the real economy want from the financial sector? Because let's make no mistake about it, we need finance. Effective modern economies don't exist without an effectively functioning financial system. We need finance really to do four things. We need it to facilitate our payment system, to enable us to receive wages and salaries, pay our bills, to enable businesses to transact with each other. We need finance to help with wealth management, to help us smooth our consumption over our lifetime and pass our wealth and our physical assets on between generations. We need capital allocation, which is taking the savings of households and transforming them into the capital stock of the nation. And finally, finance can help with risk management to mitigate or share the risks which we face in ordinary life. So finance is really for these four things. And we need to ask the question, how well does the financial system do in performing these? I think we need a new regulatory philosophy. I think the attempt to regulate the financial sector by means of detailed prescriptive rule books has failed. And what we need to do is focus instead on looking at the structure of the industry and the incentives of people within it, both at the personal and the corporate level.
You talked about personal incentives, and it's been said that the problem with the personal incentives given to bankers and asset managers is that they're asymmetrical. If they take big risks, the payoff, they get paid massive bonuses, but they're not penalised if it doesn't. What do you think about that?
Well, I think playing with other people's money is a large part of the problem, and playing with other people's money with these asymmetric structures is a further part of the problem. So I think the two things we need to do, one is to rearrange things so we reduce the degree of asymmetry. For example, that to the extent that corporate executives are paid bonuses at all. I'm rather puzzled actually at the whole idea that they need to be paid bonuses, in the sense that if someone who is doing the job of being chief executive of a large company needs to be given a bung to work harder, they're probably the wrong person to be doing that job in the first place. But if we are to have bonuses, I think the right way to do it is to give them shares in the company which are not quickly realizable, so that they actually have an engagement with the long-term future of the company.
As we are at Nesta, which is kind of the patron of social innovation and social enterprises here in the UK, I would like to know what you think, your opinion about how can finance actually impact positively the investments in the social business sector?
I think the best way we can contribute to that, actually, is what I was describing of breaking up financial conglomerates and having much smaller, less interactive specialist institutions. So in the areas you're talking about, it's actually establishing businesses that have particular capabilities in relation to these sorts of finance. And that I think we need to do imaginatively right across the the small and medium-sized business financing sector, and to develop people with actually specialist skills and specialist knowledge. That's a big change in the nature of the asset management sector we have, but that's where the reform has got to be, I think. I think what we did in the financial sector was we used to have, before the 1980s, a much greater diversity of organizational form in finance. One of the things that has happened during financialization is that almost all of these organizations converted themselves to being listed companies, listed public companies. And in the process of doing that, the capital which the mutuals and the partnerships had built up over decades in the past was largely dissipated. And it's very difficult actually to turn that clock back, because recreating the capital which is needed to make these business structures operate is really quite hard. People outside the financial sector have to understand much better what the financial sector does well and what we need it to do. And people within the sector need to be much more directed towards meeting the needs of the real economy.
One of the most interesting things I think we spoke about today was the idea of how different ways of lending to businesses and investing in businesses can really help businesses grow and change the world.